right, well, good afternoon. I am Jess.
I am Tony.
And we are Darklight Portrait Studios based in Tampa, Florida. We are starting a video project, and today is our official first day, so you're our very first guest. Woo! We are here with Coco. She is founder, I apologize. Founder of
all the things. All the things.
She is the guru, the big kahuna of Across the Tees event company located in Temple Terrace. So we're going to let her tell you a little bit about what she does, and then we'll get into the dirt and the meat and the nitty-gritty of it.
Yeah. So that was the best introduction I've ever had in my entire life. So I am Coco with Across the Tees event company. I am the event mastermind and guru behind all things events, planning, coordination, and we do a little styling here and there as far as style shoots and your actual event, mood board, scape, and all that good stuff. So been in business since 2013 and love it. Absolutely adore doing events, and if you need anyone to bounce ideas off of and bring them to life, I am that person for you.
Awesome. At the end of this, we'll talk about her website and how to get a hold of her, and that way you can follow up if you need to ask any questions, or if you need to get pricing, or you have any events or weddings or anything that's coming up that you really need help with. We're going to talk a lot today. We're going to do some helpful tips. We're going to talk about some good things, some bad things about the industry. We'll talk about all kinds of things. So it's going to be a party. Tony, you have anything before we get started?
Not that I can think of, but we just got to remember to project our voices so that everybody in the back can hear.
With the cheap seats in the back. Those of you who are sitting way up.
In the back. Got you.
So, I guess to start, you are in Temple Terrace-ish area.
Yeah.
But you do video. See, it's gonna be one of those days. You do events and weddings and that kind of stuff all over, correct?
All over, yeah. Temple Terrace is just where the office is located, but wherever I'm needed, I always say wherever I'm needed, that's where I'll go. So up and down Florida, outside the United States, if my assistance can be of assistance to you, I will come to you.
Absolutely. Yeah, by the way, if you're having a wedding or an event out of the United States, we want to go too. So we will take your picture anywhere you want to go.
Yes,
So,
absolutely.
Yeah. We actually met Coco, it has been 3 years now?
Yeah.
I think it was 2017, which is when we first came to Florida.
Yeah.
And we were looking up event planners, and oddly enough, although we lucked out, she was one of the few event planners that we reached out to that actually responded. So I will tell you that our experience has been that it's very difficult to get event planners to actually respond to an inquiry, at least from our standpoint. And she did respond, and she responded very quickly, and that was a really good sign. Because personally, if I'm going to work with someone, I want somebody that I can get a hold of, not necessarily 24 hours a day,
of course,
but I do want you to respond in a timely manner, and not just blow me off.
Right.
So,
exactly.
plus number one right there for Across the Tees is that. So we're going to do, it's going to be very informal today. I have my list of things that we will talk about. But we do want to have a conversation. We don't want to just sit here and interrogate each other, because that's just terrible.
Yeah.
I think number one thing that is on people's minds is, how has coronavirus affected not just your business, but the planning industry as a whole?
It sucks, for lack of a better way to put it. It just sucks all the way around, and that it's one of those things where it's the new normal for planners right now. Like everyone's rushing to do the next virtual thing, the next adjusted event in a virtual way. And some things have been, successful. Like, there's a lot of conferences that are going virtual, which I think is great, because sometimes I can't, get on a plane and go to another state to get some other type of learning or whatever. But then there's other things that, like that face-to-face interaction, like some people are opting to do their weddings virtually, which kind of sucks. So as a planner, it's, we do everything in our heads and on paper and on computers, but we do all of that with the anticipation of bringing it to life. And now that finish line is non-existent. It's just kind of like, oh no, what do we do now? So it sucks in that regard. It's forcing us to get more creative. We're all creative in that sense as planners because we have to think on our toes, but it's like now you really have to like dig deep because no one ever woke up and said, you know, what if that's going to be a pandemic? Let's write that down in the emergency kit of things to do. No one's ever thought of that, but now it's forcing us to have to do it. But then we have to work harder because now we have to convince you that your event can still happen. It can still happen, but it has to happen like this way. And you're just like, not sold, cancel. So it's like, okay, now I'm just going to figure out something else to do now.
Yeah. Yeah, we, photography-wise, of course, we've had the same situation with all the canceling and the schedules and everything has been a hot mess. And for those of you watching, if you've been planning any events or weddings or whatever and have had to postpone, we completely understand, and it's just the way it is right now. But there are some ways to still have your event. There are some ways to still have your wedding where you can still make it nice. You can still get photography. You can still have an event planner. You can still do all of these things. It just has to look a little different now. And that's one of the things that we're going to talk about today, because we want people to continue to enjoy life. Especially right now, the way things are going, I think there's so much negative. It's negative.
Yes.
All we're hearing about is the election and politics and, spying from Russia and
all the distractions.
the pandemic and all the distractions, everything that's bad. And we have to remember to celebrate the stuff that's still positive.
Yep.
And, even if you can't have a wedding of 200 of your favorite people, you can still have a wedding of 25 of your absolute favorite people.
Yep.
And the wedding size necessarily doesn't mean that you love your spouse any more or less.
Exactly.
You can still have the same love. Maybe this way you get a small wedding and a down payment on a house instead of just a giant wedding.
Hello.
So there's lots of things to consider. If you've always dreamed of having a wedding that's just out of this world, more power to you, do your thing. But you don't have to necessarily do that.
Right.
And that's, I think people forgot that. Like, oh my God, I can't do it. Well, no, that's not necessarily true.
Yeah, it's not.
Are the hybrid weddings available to do, like where they can do part virtual and part
Oh yeah, absolutely. Especially if you were a wedding that it was coming up really soon, and because with your marriage license, you do have a small window to get married. Like once you get the license, I think it's like 60 days, and well, it depends on where you're getting married at, but you have a small window and you gotta get it done. If you don't do it in that window, you gotta apply again. So a lot of people who were kind of stuck in that crossroad have opted to do the micro weddings or the virtual weddings, and then if they had a venue booked, we'll just celebrate the big union later on. Which I even had a client that fell into that whole situation with their wedding was in April, and it was like right at the start of everything, and we were kind of like playing double dutch, like, is it happening, is it not happening? And then we toggled with a backyard wedding, and then we toggled with, okay, so we'll do the catering, but we'll cut it by this much. And at that point, they had already paid like 99% of their catering bill off for a guest count of over 100. So it was just like, we kind of had to have a come to Jesus moment. And all right, cool, we'll do it this way since we already have the license and we need to do it by this certain point. But then we'll just celebrate later on. And there were a lot of vendors that were super accommodating in that regard. Like most officiants are mobile anyway, so. And a lot of them are doing virtual weddings now where, you just sign in on Zoom, and you and that person, you and your partner, or wherever you are in your house, and the officiant's right there on Zoom, and they're marrying you, and, everything is copacetic in that regard. So, it's still a work in progress to convince people to want to get on board with it, because it's like there's that moment that they feel like they still need to have. But it's just like based on the reality and what our new normal is going to become, it's like this is what you're up against.
Right. Have you run into any situations where you've had a couple that they had paid all their stuff, they've got their venue, their caterer, their photographer, whatever, and they've had to postpone or cancel, and their vendors have just been unable or unwilling, I guess I should say, to work with them in terms of money or rescheduling?
I have, knock on wood, I've had none. I've had no vendors that have not been flexible as far as date changes, anything as far as, modifying payments, extending payments, anything like that. I've had no vendors. that have been a pain for me to deal with. And with that said, I'm very particular about who I work with for that specific reason, because the vendors got to make my life easier in order for me to make the client's life easier. So thankfully, the vendors that I have been working with that are, dealing with their own, as far as their own businesses with that, they get it. They understand that flexibility on all costs is something that we all need. So I've had none that's been problematic in that regard. Thank God.
That's a good thing. I know we've seen on like Facebook, people have posted some horror stories about venues that won't give money back, or somebody who just is flat refusing, saying, yeah, you gave me $3,000 and I'm keeping it even though I'm not doing our job. So hopefully the majority of the people who are in this industry understand the struggle that's going on right now and are willing to do that. Do remember that if you have issues getting money back from a vendor, it's possible that it's because they're trying to get money back to a lot of people, and they don't have the cash coming in, so it can only so much can go out at a time. So try not to freak out. Try to remember that at times are hard for everybody right now, and if that happens, just be patient and just work with them the best they can. You think that you can. If they're flat refusing, that's a whole different ball game, but we're not going to get into all that ugliness today because we're going positive. Yay!
I will say, to add on to that though, I highly 100% recommend, and I don't let any of my clients slide without it. Get event insurance. The moment that you pick a date for your wedding, go and get your insurance policy. You can get a 1-day event insurance policy, and it helps for things like those vendor cancellations and all of those things of that nature, especially since you are shelling out a lot of money. Get insurance. Get insurance.
I'm not gonna lie, I didn't even know that was a thing, but awesome. I know that we have insurance as photographers to go out and do stuff in case something happens, but I didn't know you could get insurance on your event.
Wedding insurance is super popular. Regular event insurance, get it. Get it.
Wow.
Look at us spreading knowledge. I'm so excited.
Absolutely.
How do you get event insurance?
So your typical insurance provider, there's some that actually will have policies or they'll work with certain companies hand in hand. Like the most popular insurance company is Hiscox. I don't know if you guys have them, but I have them for my business, and then they also offer special event insurance. There's another one, Event Helper. I believe it's eventhelper.com. You can go on there and get a quote or get a policy right away. But it's a typical Google search, because there are some, like you can find some through Geico or Progressive, just depending on if they have a specialty for that. But for the most part, it's an easy Google search. Just look for wedding event insurance or event insurance, and then you can get a quote and a policy like that.
Wow.
That's awesome.
All right.
Well, definitely everybody should do that.
Especially now.
Yes.
You mentioned earlier about how working with vendors to make your life easier. Because we're photographers, we're always wanting to know from a photography standpoint, what can we do to make your job easier as the coordinator of the day? Anybody who's a photographer out there, pay attention, but this is also for us.
It's twofold. One, read the timeline that I send you. Please read it. Please read it. Please read it. Two, please have your own version of a timeline. To be honest with you, me personally, I don't know about any other planner, but I base my timeline based off your timeline.
Right.
Because your day is so time specific. Like mine is time specific in terms of, if we have to be out of the venue by a certain time, we have to, I have to make sure hair and makeup is done. But the show technically begins when you guys get there. And if I'm building your shot list for you, I'm just going to throw everything on there. I'm like, yeah, I think this is what they want. But you guys have the eye. You guys have the creativity. You guys know, okay, based on that type of shot, we need to be on the road by this time. We need to have, as opposed to 2 shooters, we need 3. We need this, we need that. So I had a wedding once where a videographer, I sent like maybe 5 versions of the timeline, because as I change it, I send a new one every single time. Wow. And he never responded. And I was like, hey, are we good to go? Yeah, we're good to go. And so I'm going based on my timeline the day of the wedding, and I'm like, okay, cool, we're moving into speeches now. And he's just like, you're doing speeches right now? I'm like, yeah, it's on the timeline. And he didn't have it out. He was like, I still got to set up my lights, and I have to do this, and I have to do that. I was like, well, look, we got to be out this room by a certain time, so let's get it going. And it was he didn't work with a timeline, and he didn't read mine either. So it's just kind of like, I can't help you if you don't help me.
Right.
So that's my biggest thing, and I am a huge advocate for photographers. Like, if I had to, I'm sorry vendors, but if I had to do a hierarchy on like who I'm riding for out here, it's the photographers.
I think that's why we've known her for 3 years.
Right, because the photographers make everyone look good. It makes me look good as far as me having actual portfolio samples, and then also you're giving something to the client that lasts forever. As far as that's concerned. So I at least always try to at least tell my clients, listen, if you are going to spend money on something, spend money on your photography. Do not sacrifice quality for cost, because that is going to be super important. It's going to be something that you're going to take with you in the long run. So for me, it's just like, I'm team photography all day, and I'll make your life easier so long as you make my life easier.
Right, right.
So when you mentioned the shot lists and everything,
Mm-hmm.
do you ever ask your clients for the moments that they're looking for
Absolutely.
specifically?
I always let my clients know well in advance. I'm like, you are going to be asked a lot of things from a lot of vendors twice. Because I'm going to ask you first, and then the vendor's going to ask you the same thing. And the only reason why I need to know is, you know, God forbid, let's say you guys are working with an iPad or something, and it dies that day, and you don't have the shot list. Well, I have it. Like, even though you and the client work together on it, that's fine. I will always say, just CC me in, guys. Just CC me in. I'm not there to do you guys' job. I'm just there as a backup support for you guys. So that way, if you misplace the shot list, well, at least I have it. And I'll always say, hey, you know, when I'm shopping my clients around to my different vendors or my preferred vendors, I like to gather that information already for you guys. Like, hey, this is the kind of shots they're looking for, XYZ. You know, this is what the day looks like. So that way, my biggest thing is, do you guys mesh well when you meet? Versus like, can you sell the product to them? The product's gonna sell itself. It's photography, but it's the personality. Does the personality mesh well? Because I've worked with some amazing photographers, but their personalities, they're asshats. Sorry for my language. And it's just one of those things where it's just like, for me, it gets to a point where the client starts communicating me to communicate to them, and I'm just like, I gotta be in another room right now. I can't just, you know, I can't play mommy and daddy between you two right now. So for me, it's, you know, I'll ask all the questions that you guys need to know, so that way my biggest focus is that you guys mesh well, so that way the day can flow organically versus so like robotic, and then you guys leave feeling like, yeah, I mean, we got the job done, but I hated that entire experience.
The whole thing was terrible.
Yeah.
Photographers. If I was photographing a wedding or an event or whatever that you did, how many do you think you need? Like 5 pictures, 100 pictures? I mean,
I'm gonna be completely honest with you. Me personally, on the lowest end 5, on the highest maybe 10 to 15, if that. Because my biggest thing is getting the details from each and every vendor that was a part of the situation, because that lets, you know, a prospective client know that I had an eye for selecting these people and putting them together and to create this whole masterpiece that we were able to put together. So for me, it's just detailed shots of everyone, like either, you know, in action. If you can get some action shots of me, that'd be great. But for the most part, it's all about everything that those vendors contributed to make this day happen. That's pretty much what my portfolio typically consists of.
okay.
No.
Okay, cool. Awesome. Oh, I'm excited. We're learning so many things. So you mentioned briefly, kind of in the introduction, of what you do. Can you go into just a little bit? If I'm a prospective bride, and for the sake of this, we're saying bride and groom. That does not mean anything. It's 2020. We do same-sex weddings. We do whatever. So we're saying bride and groom, but that doesn't mean it can't be 2 brides. It can't be 2 grooms.
Right.
Whatever is your thing. That's cool. But for the sake of understanding what we're talking about, we'll say bride and groom. So if I'm the bride and I'm coming in, and I'm saying, okay, I think I want to hire a wedding planner, coordinator, whatever, what is it that you would do for me as a client?
Okay, so first thing, before we even get into that conversation, I would ask, why? Why do you want a planner? And, I just need somebody to, you know, wait on me hand and foot, and I need someone to, you know, if I say I need this, you run and get it. I don't do that. That is not what I do.
I think we can all tell that, right?
Right. I do not do that. Now, as far as what I actually do, now, if you say you need a planner, that means you are putting your day, the trust of your day in my hands, and you're trusting that I'm going to match you with the right people, that I'm going to give you the right look that you're looking for, and then all you have to do is swipe the credit card, sign a check. That's it. And I am orchestrating your day based on your vision and what you told me how you want to feel that day, all that you want to be worried about or not worried about that day. That's going to take you putting the trust in my hands. As far as me coordinating your event, you've already got all that stuff covered. Because there are some people, strangely enough, that really want to plan an entire wedding. It's weird. Like, so much so they start doing it for a living. Like, it's crazy. So I let you get engulfed in that experience. Do that. Like, cool. I recommend plan something at least once, and that'll let you know if you want to do it forever, for the rest of your life.
Right.
I don't know why people would want to do a wedding as their first thing that they plan, but hey, do it.
Whatever floats your boat.
Right. So on the coordination end, I handle the logistics and make sure that you don't miss anything. I cross the T's and dot the I's for you.
I see where you're doing there.
Right. So I'm doing things as far as, being your vendor liaison. So, once you've gathered up all the vendors, great, I've signed the contract, I paid them. Now they only communicate with me after that. Because after that, it's nothing but details we're talking. And you're not going to be able to, walk around with a timeline that day. Somebody's got to do it. So I'm handling the logistics and making sure that, everything that you don't know to ask about, like exit strategy, where are all the emergency exits in the building, where can the vendors load in and load out, what time do you need to be out, is there, what I like to call a war room for your vendors, where there's somewhere that they can change, unwind, hide stuff. Like, I'm maintaining that line of communication with all your vendors so that way we know if Murphy's Law occurs that day, we already kind of have our plan B, C's, and D's already lined up. And that, even if you book me as a planner, I'm still doing that on the coordination side. The difference between the two, the significant difference is you are planning everything else. You're finding your own vendors, you're, interviewing them, doing all those things, and you're just like, here's my vendors, now you all make it happen and bring it to life. So there's a lot more groundwork in terms of on the coordination side as far as like vendor to vendor communication. On the planning side, it's a little bit more intimate because I'm working with you for this long period of time to make sure that everything happens the way that it needs to happen. And then from there, I'm tapping into my brain like, okay, I think she would pair well with this person. I think they would pair well with that person. On the styling aspect of things, I offer that service for both vendors and for clients. So as far as clients, as we're talking about clients, if you have a rental company that you've already found that you want to work with, but you're just like, I'm not creative at all. Like, I know what I like. I put together a Pinterest board. This is great. Okay, cool. I will work with that vendor to, curate or pull those pieces and, put these different mood boards and things together to say, hey, this is the look you're overall going for. Let's do it together. Because some rental companies will provide you the items, but they won't place them. They're just like, here's the stuff. Do whatever you want with it.
Just drop it off.
Right, just drop it off, and then we're just all sitting there looking at it like, well, okay, it's not gonna place itself. So I help out in that regard as far as with clients, with vendors who are putting together their own portfolio. I will help style the actual event for you. Same process. Pair me with your rental company, and then we'll pick pieces together, style it, and get us some amazing pictures out of that as well. And then I also offer consulting. Because there are some people that just, I don't need a coordinator, I don't need a planner, but I need to make sure that I'm, this vendor has my best interests at heart, or I'm not being played, or can you review my contract, can you, stuff like that. So I'm there at clients, disposal for that as well, where I don't even have to step foot in their event. You just need to call me and ask a couple questions. Hey, what are the appropriate questions I should ask a DJ versus, do you have that song? Like, no, there's other things you need to be asking a DJ when you're, getting ready to hire. So that's pretty much the gist of what I do: planning, coordinating, styling, and consulting. And just pretty much making sure that you have a flawless event, flawless in your world, because flawless is different to everyone else, but just keeping you out of jail and keeping your event from not getting shut down. Yeah.
If you think you might go to jail, this is the person you should talk to. She gonna work to keep you out.
I'm just saying.
All I can think of, because I know this from a personal perspective of, I have a brain, and also from a business perspective, because we actually get people who say, love you guys, your work, it's great, you do great work, but I have my friend's uncle's cousin has a camera and he's going to take pictures. And we always go, okay, I hope that it goes well. So looking at the difference between doing it yourself
Mm-hmm.
or hiring a professional
Mhm.
such as yourself,
Mhm.
the thing that always comes to my mind is I'm gonna age myself a little bit here, but Friends. Have you ever watched? Remember
Yeah,
the sitcom
yeah.
Friends?
Uh-huh.
When Monica and Chandler are getting married.
Mhm.
Spoiler alert! If for anyone who hasn't seen it, Monica and Chandler
Aw.
got married. But Monica fires Phoebe, basically,
Yeah.
who was her coordinator.
Mhm.
And Phoebe has everything in
Mhm.
line, and Monica. Oh, I'm lying. I did it the opposite.
Yeah.
Phoebe's getting married,
Yeah.
and Monica's her coordinator.
Mhm.
And Phoebe basically fires Monica,
Yeah.
and then she's trying to get everything coordinated, and it's like she's got all these vendors calling, and things are going wrong, and Monica finally steps back in
Mhm.
and fixes everything.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's kind of the difference between trying to do it yourself, where you have 52 messages of people, and then you have
Uh-huh.
somebody who's going to go, okay, this is what needs to happen.
Yep.
What do you feel like, for people who are wanting to do it themselves,
Mhm.
for whatever reason, they love to plan things,
Yeah.
or they are just don't have the budget or whatever, what is maybe your top 2 pieces of advice you could give to those people to help things go smoothly?
My top 2, my number 1 is don't. Don't do it yourself. There are a lot of things in your life that you are going to pay somebody to do because you just don't want to do it yourself. You pay somebody to cut your grass. You pay somebody. You've lately been paying people to deliver your groceries to your house. So don't let your pride be one of those things that, oh, well, I'll just plan it myself because I can save some money. Because, okay, you're saving money, but you're spending a whole lot more on the catering. You're spending a whole lot more on the venue. If you can pay somebody to do it, highly recommend doing it. And that's on any aspect of the wedding. If there's certain things, obviously, that is sentimental value, like, you want to make a certain type of favor for your guests,
Right.
or, it's a bouquet that, you want to have a certain type of brooch on it. That's fine, too, as far as those, little simple elements and whatnot, especially if you don't have the time, the manpower, all that stuff. Do not do it. 100%. My second piece of advice is consider this. Like, would you want someone that is coming to celebrate you to be working for you that day? Like, when do they have time to celebrate your union, your birthday, or whatever the event is that you're saying, I'm going to have my cousin do this? Because I had someone literally look me in the face at a bridal show and was like, yeah, I have a bossy cousin. She's just going to be there and just tell everybody what to do. And I'm just like, okay. I hope that works out for you. Like, I hope that, and I had someone had the same thing, and that person was also in the wedding. So I was like, okay, so not only are they standing next to you with those duties, because bridesmaids and groomsmen have jobs that they are responsible for doing as well,
Right.
but then they also have to wear another hat when they get to the reception. And then when are they gonna have time to dance and actually drink some alcohol that you paid for and eat the food that you paid for? They're not gonna have time to do all of that. So those are my top 2 things. Do not DIY it if you don't have to, and don't make someone that you actually care about work for you on the day of your event. Just think about it. It's just not fair. If the shoe was on the other foot, you wouldn't want to do that either. You definitely wouldn't want to do that either.
Yeah.
So think twice before asking your friend or relative to
Right.
do something at your event.
Absolutely.
Yes. We'll also add that a lot of times that friend or relative might volunteer to do it. That doesn't necessarily mean that they're 100% sold on doing it. Maybe they feel like they have, knowledge in that area, or they've done it before, or whatever. Don't feel bad about telling someone it's okay, I've hired somebody.
Yep. 6 months before your wedding to actually get a coordinator, because that's kind of when the communication would start anyway with your vendors. Like, when you're done hiring and all those things and you have your vendor team already put together, then you can go ahead and get a coordinator as far as that's concerned. But as far as a planner, as soon as possible.
Okay, so if I am looking and I'm shopping around and I'm trying to find a planner / coordinator / stylist / whatever, what are some things that I should look for? Because I can type in wedding planner on Google and I'm going to get
800.
a
course.
million people
course.
here, even just in Tampa Bay.
Yeah.
I can type in event planners in Tampa Bay and there is a ton of them. So if I am just going by, let's say you start out, I'm just looking online. What are some things, if I'm comparing 2, 3, 4, 5 websites of planners, what are some things on there that you would recommend looking for?
Definitely check out their frequently asked questions page if they have one, and kind of like look at how they've answered the questions. You can tell the difference between a copied and pasted frequently asked questions page versus questions that literally like people are asking in your position as someone shopping around. Also pay attention to how many events they do per year. And if that's not on their frequently asked questions page, ask them that. How many events do you do per year? Because you want specialized attention for your event.
Right.
Like, it's very critical that you have that planner's full and undivided attention in terms of that. Ask them, do they work with a team? Is the person that I'm talking to on the phone, in the consultation, is that the person I'm actually going to be working with the day of the event? Because that's a big deal too. Like, you could give me all the information in the world and I'm like, okay, well, here's so-and-so. She's going to be managing your day. Even if that is the case, I'd like to meet so-and-so in advance.
Right.
Like, don't introduce me to so-and-so like at this point in the game. So find out what their company structure is in terms of who am I working with on the day of my event. The service area, because some, even though I'm based in Tampa, I could be like, I only do Tampa. Like, that's it. If I have to do St. Pete, I'm charging you for that. If I have to do Clearwater, I'm charging you for that. I don't, but some people are very particular about that because I don't know if y'all have ever been driving across that bridge, but
Depending on the time of day.
that starts to add up.
Mm-hmm.
So pay attention to their service area, and if there's going to be any travel fees associated or mileage fees, mileage reimbursement, stuff like that. These are things, because these are the hidden costs that people don't associate, and then they take it out on you as a vendor when you mention like, okay, well, if that's 50 miles outside of where my office is, I got to charge you for that.
Right.
So it's keeping that keeping that in mind. Reviews are important, but it's one of those things where you have to literally sit down and read them, because some people could go right now on my website and because they're having bad connection issues and couldn't access my website, they're going to make it my fault and then just give me a negative review because I can't even get information for their site. Her site loads too slow, when it's probably just them because they have Spectrum or something.
I think we have Spectrum. Hey now.
But read the reviews. See what people are actually saying. The thing that I love most about the reviews from the clients that I have is I don't tell them how to write it. Like, I just tell them to just write me a review. And what I love about the reviews that I've gotten is they talk about aspects in our planning process that stood out to them, that made their life a lot easier around that time. So it's just kind of like, if that is important to you, like really getting to know firsthand from an actual human being that has a Facebook page, that is, still like walking around, breathing, like, hey, this is the experience that they had with that person. That's important. Read the actual reviews that you're getting, like, because a lot of us, every business has probably told their friends, hey, just write me a review, I need to get something on there. But then there's a difference between people that have actually had firsthand experience.
Right.
So definitely read that. Pay attention to a lot of different things on the website. Look at the copyright date on the website, just because it could just be a website that they threw up and they don't monitor it. They don't, they probably, their main source of communication is probably Facebook, but they just have a website because I'm a business, I need to have a website. So that means they haven't been updating anything. Their pictures are probably outdated. They probably haven't done an event in 4 years or something like that. So pay attention to the details on the website to kind of make sure that it's an active business that's still up, because there are some businesses that are not in business anymore and their website just hasn't expired yet. Like, it's just still up there lingering. They still have the domain name. And then see if you can actually see the actual planner on the site. Before, and this is like just me being super transparent, I never put my face on my website, just because it was one of those things where it's like, if you were going to find out I was black, you were going to find out at the consultation. Like, hey, it is what it is. But it got to a point now where it's just like, I'm very proud of who I am, and my work speaks for itself. And I've had a multitude of the whole entire rainbow of clients. Black, white, Asian, Indian, all those things, gay, straight, everything. So it's just like, why hide that? Why hide that, I'm the mastermind behind all of those things? So it's just like, and it kind of gives a human touch, that there's an actual, this is not like a, what is it, when you get in a car accident, what do they tell you to call? 411 pain, where you just call it and then they'll just patch you with anybody type thing. No, there's actually a human face behind it. There's actually a person there with personality. So see if the actual planner is somewhere on the site pictured where you can see their first and last name or whatever or something like that. Just kind of like a getting to know you type thing.
You hear that, professionals? Have a headshot.
We can help you with that.
Hello. Yeah.
That's so true. I mean, it sounds really small.
Yeah.
But even at the very least, because you're possibly going to meet in Starbucks or you're going to meet here, you're going to meet there. It's nice to know who you're looking for.
Yes.
I hate going in the door and not knowing what the person's looking, and then I feel like such an idiot standing in the door and I'm looking around I'm like, oh god,
and
it's
then
so
that's
awkward.
how you get found, because you're the one looking around, looking crazy.
Or you're like, you try to look at people like, is it you?
Right,
and they're looking at you like you're crazy.
Mm-hmm.
Like an early 90s rom-com.
Yeah, yes.
Yeah,
Get
it's
that.
so at the very least, if you have a website and you have a business where you're dealing with people, there should be an image of you on your page. Absolutely. And a lot of times that's going to be the first impression that people get of you.
Absolutely.
So if there's a picture of you on there and it's from 10 years ago and you're hungover and your hair is out to here, or you've lost or gained 50 pounds since then, you really should have an updated photo on your website. And we can help with that. So call us. Alright, let's get into some fun, not that this isn't fun, but let's get into some more like juicy stuff. What are some red flags? I know that we've just talked about things to look for, but what are some things if I saw it I should immediately be like, okay, no, that's a no.
As a client?
Yeah, as a client.
Red flags with me?
With anybody. If I'm a client and I'm looking or I'm talking to
with
a
other
coordinator,
vendors or
like if I'm, and it doesn't have to be just planners, but if I'm trying to talk to a caterer, I'm talking to a photographer or whatever, what are some things that I should kind of try to stay away from?
Definitely stay away from frienders. We use that term in our industry, obviously. Once we get closer and get to a certain point, we start calling each other frienders. But in terms of on prospective clients, those are the people in your family that pick up a camera one day and it's just like, I can take your pictures, or someone that just cooks really well and they want to cater, they want to be the caterer for your event. Don't do that. Like if it's somebody that you just happen to come across, it's like, hey, I cater events and all they really did was they bring a whole bunch of hamburgers to a birthday party. Like, stay away from those. And it's only because, not to say that they're not talented, but there is a 99% chance they are not licensed and or insured, which is going to be a liability on you. If someone gets, sick, hurt, whatever at that event, that's going to fall back on you. That's where the event insurance comes in at also. So stay away from frienders.
I think, not to interrupt you, but I think that goes as well, is to make sure that the vendors that you're hiring are legit businesses.
Yes.
They should have insurance, they should have business insurance, and they should have an actual licensed business.
Right.
And that goes for all across the board. You don't want somebody catering your party who doesn't have any kind of license, because there's no telling where that food's getting made.
Exactly.
So
yes, so that is super important. I'll definitely say another red flag is definitely not having any online presence whatsoever. I don't know how you are a business in 2020 that does not have social media and or a website. Technically, all of that, that's like usually the first thing that you learn is like claim your online real estate as soon as you start your business. So anything that doesn't have something of that nature, that's a red flag. Hands down. Yeah, they'll say, oh, just call me. Nope. I need to see the work. I need to see, and I need to see, where's your landing page, all those things. That's a red flag. If they don't have it, no. I'll also say, depending on the vendor or whatever it is that they do, if you're a photographer that doesn't have a portfolio, that's questionable. That's very questionable. It's just like, well, what do you do with the work? Like when you shoot it, what are you doing with it? If you're a caterer and they can't do a tasting, or they don't, you can't sample the food, then how is that relationship going to work?
Right.
Also with catering, a big red flag, and this is actually something that I dealt with an actual client, find out if that caterer just caters food. Because some caterers only just cater food. And when I say that, there are some caterers that will not provide plates, will not provide flatware, will not provide cups, will not provide any of that stuff, which is the strangest thing. I thought it would be standard until I met a caterer that legit only just dropped off the food, didn't provide servers, actual people to serve the food, and didn't provide anything to eat the food off of or eat with.
Wow.
So
I thought that was a caterer's whole deal.
That's what I thought, but that's a red flag. If that's all they do is provide food, then honey, you could do that yourself. If that's the case, like highly, highly, highly don't recommend working with a company that specifically does that. Run if that's the case.
It's like ordering Uber Eats. They're just gonna bring it to your door.
Yeah,
Okay,
we'll figure it out from there. Let's see. Any other red flags that I'll definitely say is an issue? If the communication is spotty, like if it's one of those things where it was like, to get to know you or to get the business, they were all in your inbox. It's all in your inbox, and then now that you finally bit the bait and you're ready to sign and you're ready to do all these other things, and then like they ghost you, and then when they finally reappear, they give you the sob story and they get real personal and run, because that's what your experience is going to be like with them as well. Getting the business is almost a reflection of what it's going to be like when you actually work with them. So definitely, set your standard as a client also from the beginning, because that vendor is setting their standard as well. Even if it's a completely terrible standard that they're setting, it's just like, yeah, you're gonna send me a message at 8 p.m. I'm gonna respond at 4 a.m. That's fine. At least you know that in advance. But you as a client, as someone who it's gonna take trust when you pick these certain vendors. Set your standard from the beginning, and if they don't meet it, keep it moving.
Yep. One thing you did mention is signing, which I know because we do it but you'd be referring to a contract. I think that's another red flag too, is if somebody doesn't have a contract, there's no, everybody thinks contract is a bad word. You think, oh, I'm getting into this contract, I'm legally obligated, whatever it is. Cover your butt. You need to have a contract.
Yes.
The vendor needs to have a contract to cover their ass, and you need to have that same contract to cover yours. Because if something goes wrong and you do not have it in writing, it could cost you a whole lot of money.
And please don't, as a client, don't think that you don't have the jurisdiction to have a contract. Because I've worked with vendors who were just starting out. They were frienders. The growing pains of when you first start your business, and the client was able to come up with their own contract. Let's just say, okay, cool, you said you're coming at this time, at this date, this is what we require, this is how much we paid you. You're able to do that as well, especially if it's a vendor that doesn't have it. But that also kind of goes back to the whole friend or red flag thing. There's a 90% chance that they don't have license, they don't have insurance, they're probably not operating with a contract either. Handshake deals are not contracts that are going off the strength of, oh, you have my word, I'll be there, I'll bring this. Don't do it.
It's not the 1800s.
Yeah, do not do it. And I mean, I would say it's kind of a red flag, but kind of not. Like vendors that only accept cash, that's fine. If they accept cash, they need to give you a receipt. Paper trail, paper trail, paper trail. You can pay whatever way you want, but you need documentation that a financial transaction was had. So that way, if you do run into a situation that, hey, you said you were going to do this, I paid you this much. Here's the actual proof of doing that. So definitely, if you work with somebody that works with cash, just make sure they give you a receipt.
Yep. It sucks that that even is something we have to talk about.
Right.
But the reality is that in every single profession in the world, at any given time, there's always at least one person somewhere that will take full advantage of somebody, and it will continue to do it as long as they can get away with it.
Absolutely.
There's photographers who have done it. I'm sure there are planners who have done it.
Oh,
There are DJs and caterers and whatever. Every profession has people who will screw you if they're given the opportunity. And unfortunately, when that happens, that kind of ruins it for the rest of us.
Exactly.
Because then people don't really trust you to do this. Oh, well, I heard these horror stories. So let's ask you, what is a horror story that you have either had happen to you or to someone you know, or that you've heard of that just is horrid?
I would say for me, I've had, and this kind of goes along with, I like to build a rapport with my clients to a point where you have my back, I have yours. Like, this is your day. Technically, this is our day. Because whatever goes wrong is my fault. Like, it always ends up that way, because that's people's mindset. Yeah. It's like, you had a planner and your planner made this happen and this is what happened. But at the end of the day, your celebration is my celebration. your sorrow is my sorrow. Your loss is my loss. So we have to work together. And where we fall short sometimes in that aspect is usually around the time when the rehearsal comes around. And that's when I'm meeting other people that I have not worked with for the 365 plus days that you and I have been working together. So I meet all the different personalities. I meet the moms, the dads, the bridesmaids, the sisters, the cousins, the everyone that should have been your planner, but you went with me instead. I meet all those people, the ones that are really challenging me on how to do my job. And I'll find that I'll give certain instructions and they don't want to listen because they're like, well, you don't work for me and XYZ, so I'm not going to listen. I don't need to listen to what you're telling me. And then I end up having to save that person in the end and have to hide it from the bride that I had to do that. So I had a bride that her bridesmaid, she would be so chatty, like in the rehearsal, and just not listening and just like, you know, talking over me, talking around me, all those things. And I'm giving certain instruction, like, hey, you know, this is a timeline. The timeline's very crucial, XYZ. So then the day of the wedding, somehow she manages to forget her dress in the hotel.
Oh no.
They're already at the venue. And she's like, I left my dress at the hotel. And I'm just like, well, I don't know what to tell you. Because I specifically said, have these things packed, have this, have that, XYZ, blah, 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 yada, yada, yada. And then I would think that we wouldn't have to have this conversation because it's your dress that you're wearing in the wedding. And so she was like, oh my God, I don't know what to do. She's going to be so mad at me. So I had to get in my car and go back to the hotel. And then getting to the hotel, the security guard wouldn't let me go to the room because he's like, it's not your room. And I was like, I understand that, but I have a wedding that is starting in 45 minutes. I really need to go get this dress. He's like, well, I'll go get the dress for you because I can't let you in the room. I was like, whatever, somebody get the dress, please. And literally, and this wedding was in Orlando, so it's not even my stomping ground. So it's just like, he went up, got there, and then he's just like, I can't find the dress. Yes, because if you would have let me in the room, I know what the dress looks like. So these are the things that I'm dealing with because you didn't want to listen at rehearsal. You didn't listen to the instructions. And that's the thing, is just like, let your family and your friends know your wedding planner has it all figured out. It has it all planned out. Don't challenge her. Don't challenge them. Don't try to make their job harder than it needs to be, because it's gonna get harder as more guests arrive. So I had to deal with that. That was terrible. That was an absolute nightmare because we were really going against deadlines, and I've never driven so fast in my entire life. And I was like, I don't want to get a ticket in Orlando. I don't know the court system out here. I don't know any of this stuff. But I'm like, we had to get there. Like, we just had to get the dress and we had to get it back. And I got it in enough time for the bride not to notice that I wasn't there. So, listen to the planner. Stop talking at the rehearsal. And we'll be all right. We will be all right. Have trust enough in your friends and family that they hired this person to have their back to a point where you can relax too. Because my job is not just to make them relax, it's to make all of you relax. Because again, bridesmaids and groomsmen, you have your own job that day. And if you're too busy trying to challenge me on how to do my job, you're neglecting your job, which is to overall be this person's support system that day.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think something that people forget is that no matter how much you work at it, no matter how much you plan and how much you try and how you have organized things, inevitably at least one thing will go wrong.
Absolutely.
And people freak out about that. Oh my God, it's my wedding, it's not perfect.
Yep.
We've been to enough weddings, and I'm sure Coco's been to enough weddings that we can tell you something's going to go wrong.
Oh,
Don't
yeah.
let it ruin your day.
Oh yeah. Something is going to go wrong. It is my job, though, to make sure you never find out what went wrong. But something is always going to go wrong.
Yeah.
Most definitely. And as soon as you get that understanding in your brain, then it will make the nerves calm down just a little bit. But like, if you're really out here thinking like you're gonna be on like some David Sutera type stuff, like you could. Financially, you could have that type of wedding, but experience-wise, it's gonna be one of those. Especially if you always need to interject, you always need to. You could be the person to sabotage your wedding day and not even know it. Yep. So just get that ingrained in you, and you'll be good to go.
Yep.
Have you ever had a bride sabotage her own wedding?
Absolutely, absolutely. I had a bride that. She really wanted to penny pinch. She wanted to be the bride to say that, yes, it is possible to have a $10,000 wedding. And it is, but there are a lot of stipulations in order for you to accomplish that. And she wanted to do everything local. Like she had it at a local restaurant that she frequented a lot. And, you know, but the restaurant wasn't set up to host weddings. Like it just wasn't built that way. It wasn't one of those kinds of facilities.
Taco Bell's doing the best they can, honey.
Listen, no, Taco Bell's got it down pat, okay? Taco Bell is elite. But it wasn't set up like that. And we, as my team, we were doing the best we could to accommodate the shortcomings that this restaurant had. And they weren't looking at it as, this is still a wedding day. They were still operating as a restaurant in the front, but then as a reception space in the back. And then they were still, you could tell it was like a lot of things from how they were dressed that day. They weren't dressed as if they were going to have people in here in formal attire. Like they were dressed like, listen, we still got tables, we got to wait on in the front. And it was just like, you know, I had always kept asking like, hey, do you think you want to consider, you know, doing it here? Or, you know, you can do your rehearsal dinner here, but then do it at this. No, because I don't want to spend any money on this. Okay, cool, no problem. So much so that there were a lot of other elements that, you know, she had one friend making these things and one friend building this and one friend building that. And I was like, okay, in my head, I constitute those as vendors. So I'm like, I need these people's numbers. I need to know when they're coming. I need to know when they're going to deliver on their end of what they're doing for you. Mm-hmm. She's like, no, it's okay. They'll call me. No, they need to call me because you're going to be getting married. And then at the ceremony space, she had someone there that was very type A. Like she was, you know, talking over me, talking around me, talking through me, not looking me in the face as I'm, you know, getting instructions. And I'm just like, okay, so you do know she hired me for a reason, right? And it's just like, because she had that aspect of, they were also friends, but she also, like, I guess ran the venue as well. Mm-hmm. She was like, yeah, I'm only going to talk to her. Day of the wedding, she forgot a really important element, and she's just like having a total meltdown. And I'm just sitting there looking like, oh, well, maybe you wanted to work together this time. Like, you know, I've been sitting here this whole time, but because you guys have this close friendship and you didn't want to talk to me, and then she also had another person that was making something for her, and she introduced us at one of our client meetings, and she had an attitude. She did not want to work with me. She didn't understand why I was there and all these other things. And I'm just like, you are going to sabotage your own wedding because you're telling all these people that they can be a part of your day in these aspects, and they're going off of it on some friendship type relationship. And then when the professional comes in and kind of gives, you know, professional corrections and criticisms, it's just like, well, who the hell are you? And how dare you tell me what to do? My best friend said I could do this, so I got free reign. All right, fine. And then a lot of things started to happen that we were working around the clock trying to fix. Actually, another horror story. So the bride, she wanted to surprise one of her friends with like this cake or whatever. It was like a spoof cake or whatever. And it was also their birthday. So unbeknownst to me, one of the guests were bringing the cake there. So we're just like, okay, I'm talking to my team. I'm like, you guys got eyes on the cake? Anybody know where the cake is? Anybody know where the cake is? We're like, no, we don't know where the cake is. Nobody's brought the cake back here. So it gets to the point where reception, we're there, and then there's just this random guy just sitting there, and I see it's a cake box that's sitting at his table, and I'm just like, please don't tell me that's the cake. He was like, yeah, I had the cake just sitting here this whole time. So I'm like, okay, fine. So we get the cake, and you know, sometimes when you get a cake, they put the receipt over like the screen. You can't really see what's going on in it. So we give it to the kitchen, they put it away. So it's time for us to present the cake. We open the box, the cake has shifted. The cake looks like complete shit. Like it's ruined.
Oh no.
And I'm just like, for all we know, it probably got ruined in transit. The restaurant probably could have dropped it on the way putting it in the fridge. We don't know because the receipt was over the screen the whole time. So we didn't see what the cake was supposed to look like. So we're like trying to do damage control that day. And I'm like, I just took some flowers from one of the bridesmaids, and I just started stuffing flowers in the cake, like trying to just like at least make this cake look presentable, because it threw off the timeline, because it had nothing to do with our day. Like, you're going out of your way to add an element to tell someone at your wedding happy birthday, and like, we don't have time for this, but we'll make it happen because you want it to happen. But because you trusted a random guest with the cake, if I would have brought you the cake the way it looked, you would have been like, what the hell is this? But that's you sabotaging your day because you just wanted to do all these things because you wanted to save money and you wanted to do all these other things. But there are ways to save money and still work with a professional and still make things happen. So that was another horror story. I was like, yeah, DIY brides, no thank you. No thank you. I'm good off that, yeah.
Yeah, that definitely. Yeah.
Yeah.
So as we've been talking, we've covered a lot of different topics and
Mhm.
areas and things. What is your biggest pet peeve? And I ask that because I know that we've talked about, people trying to do it themselves and they're stepping in and all that. But if I'm coming to you as a new client, what would be the biggest thing that I could be doing to annoy the crap out of you? As a new client, maybe I've just signed my contract,
Yeah.
or I'm considering signing a contract. What would make your job extra hard that's just super obnoxious?
I would say trying to modify the service. Typically you get a detailed written out proposal of what working with me will entail, and then you try to slide things on there that are way out of my job scope or way out of whatever you paid for. And granted, you can add on things later on onto the contract as you pay for it, but you'll go into a consultation with a preconceived idea of what a planner is supposed to do, and you're trying to sell yourself on that, and you're just trying to get me to say yes. And it's just like, no, I don't do that. No, I don't do that. But what about, no, I don't do that. And it's just like I had someone, like I have rentals also. I have a few rentals, and then they were saying, I met someone at a bridal show, and she was just like, I was like, yeah, if you rent from us, we will also coordinate your event as well, so that way we're already on site coordinating the event, and we can just take the rentals when we leave.
Right.
Oh, so you can't just drop them off and leave? No, you can't do that, because we get our rentals from another rental company, so the rental company is trusting us, and then no, we're not just going to drop it off, and then you're going to need a coordinator anyway that day, so you might as well just kill two birds with one stone. So that's a big pet peeve for me. Like, you already coming in, you designed in your head what your wedding planner is going to do for you. You completely did not read the website, didn't read the proposal, didn't read any of that. No, this is what I really need you to do. I need you to fold a couple t-shirts. I need you to, pass out some napkins. Okay, I don't do that. So that's not happening. Or we've already gotten to a point like, okay, on the day of, I'm going to need you to do this. Nope. That's not what's happening on the day of. Don't do that. Absolutely do not modify what you paid for unless you're going to pay extra for it, and definitely don't try to push the envelope just to see, oh, my wedding is tomorrow, you can't just do, no, can't do that. Because certain things, and it's not even just me, being a bitch, it's like certain things require manpower. Like, if you call me and say you've added 50 extra people, then I have to get another coordinator that day to come in and man that many people, or we got to find more rentals. We got to do an extra table. We got to change the floor plan. There's a lot of other things that get readjusted that becomes things that are part of my billable hours that, I have to take into account, because I have people that I have to pay to do stuff as well. So just don't modify it. Just clear, open communication from jump, and, we'll be good to go.
Yeah.
So you've had people try to do that then?
Absolutely.
Yes. We all.
That same wedding that I was telling you about that was at that restaurant, she wanted me to build, keyword build.
Well, see, you're a carpenter too.
She wanted me to build a photo booth, like a photo booth area. Because I was like talking, I was like, yeah, and your photo booth's going to be over there. So I'm like, okay, cool. Who's putting that together? Oh, I thought you do that. I was like, no. And then she tried to kind of do reverse psychology and guilt trip me. Like, if I would have known that you didn't do that, then I wouldn't have hired you. Okay, no problem. I mean, I will find someone that is able to do it. You're just going to have to pay extra for it. But I don't do that. That's not the way my insurance is set up.
Right.
So, no, that's not what I do. And we eventually had to have a come to Jesus moment, and she had to, I had to talk off the ledge. And eventually we got to an understanding that, and that's why I don't like DIY brides, because they don't assess those behind the scenes things that you have to take into account when you want to build your own decor and you want to do all those things. There's a lot of things that these professionals know to look for that you are going to overlook just because you're just not in the industry and you don't have the experience. And there's a lot of people that's just not giving that information away like that to say, don't forget to get this type of harness, or don't forget to get this type of, they're just not doing that because they want you to hire them to do the job professionally. And it takes a lot of training on certain aspects of, building certain things that I don't have time for and have no interest in doing.
Yeah. We can do the photo booth, by the way.
Let's see all these plugs that I'm putting in for them.
Our insurance does cover that. So I have one more. Well, I have two more questions, but one more that we talked about earlier a little bit was, what could a couple do if they truly wanted to make their wedding different and unique and special to them? What's something that they can incorporate that will be for them that, you know, everybody else may not have?
I would say something that gives more of an insight into their love story. So if there's a certain place that they met, you know, if there's a memento they can create around that. Like I had a couple who their tables, they didn't use table numbers. They were a traveling company, and each table was somewhere that they went together.
Oh, nice.
And then the actual table number was a picture of them at that place. So they had one table that was Miami, one table that was Chicago, one table that was Jamaica, and it was a picture of them in those different places. I had another couple who they were both performers, like they were both in theater, and each table was named after a movie that they watched at different periods of their relationship and things of that nature, and things that also reflected to the people that they sat at those tables. So like, for example, they used like school days, Spike Lee's school days, or people that they went to college with sat at that table. You know, little stuff like that. So things that tell more about your love story, because your wedding day is your love story on blast. That's essentially what it is. So instead of making it a big party that people are coming to celebrate on, because you could have just did that in your backyard if that's the case.
Yeah.
But no, like this is an intimate look into our love story on how we got here to this day. So definitely keeping that into account. Also being very, very, very taking your vows seriously in terms of what you're saying in your vows. That relationship with your officiant is very important. That's why it's just kind of like, don't just pick just anybody.
Mm-hmm.
That's another vendor that I highly recommend that clients actually sit down and interview and get to know, because that person is the narrator of your love story that day.
Right. So,
you know, if there's elements you can incorporate in that, that would be most ideal. And first and foremost, definitely you and your partner, that's the only opinions that matter. If there are quirky things that you guys really like, put it in the wedding. Mm-hmm. Like I had a couple, she surprised her husband to be with a Star Wars theme, like you know how they scroll the letters upward and stuff like that. She did her vows like that. And he's obsessed with Star Wars, and he loved it. Like he absolutely lost his shit when he saw it. And like she got it made and saved for him as a keepsake, as a momentum, and that was a way. And at their reception, their photo booth, they had a big Chewbacca. So if you took pictures out there when Chewbacca was in your pictures.
that's awesome.
So it was like little things like that were, you know, important to their relationship that was incorporated in it. So always try to do those elements. Granted, you're going to get decor companies that's going to try to give you feathers and you don't like feathers, or, you know, stuff like that. But if there's an element that you can include that signifies your relationship, it gives a better insight to the people who are coming to your wedding. Like, this is really important to them. This is really, you know, something that they really took the time to actually want us to be a part of, versus I just bought this, I bought that, I bought this, I bought that because I want to end up in a magazine type situation. Like, no, actually give some attention to detail that shows your love story.
Right. I think that's awesome. I think a lot of people sometimes they get wrapped up in the whole wedding thing and they feel like they have to have, it has to look a certain way or it has to look a certain way, but really the reality is the day is about the two of you. You want it to reflect the two of you.
Absolutely.
If you hate, you know, like you said, feathers, you do not want everything covered in feathers.
Yeah.
Like you might be terrified of birds.
Exactly.
You don't want everything covered in feathers.
And what kind of advice do you have to say to the couple that has like the best friend or the mom or the grandmother or somebody in their family or close to them, telling them how their wedding should be looking like?
Well, I always say, especially if they are not paying for anything, zip it. Don't say a word. But even if they are paying for something, that is great. Thank you so much for your financial contribution, but this is not your day.
Yeah.
Just hands down, this is not your day. And if you cannot respect that, then unfortunately you just can't come. Like, and You have to be able to be adult enough to say that, regardless of the relationship ties, because at the end of the day, that means you don't have my best interest at heart for this day, because you're making it about you. Somehow, some way, you're making it about you. Like, I had a client whose mom was really adamant about her, you know, using this specific aisle runner. And I hate it. I hate them. It sounds like paper aisle runners. I hate them. I hate them. They never stay still. And they always rip. Every time. Mm-hmm. And I kept saying, I was just like, you know, we can get like a actual red carpet or a different color carpet. We can get that to happen, or we can do rose petals. No. My mom's really insistent, like, that's her gift to us. She's going to buy us the aisle runner. And in my head, I'm thinking it's some VIP shit. And then show up, and it's the exact paper aisle runner that I cannot stand. And I was just like, okay. Just put it down, you know, decorator I was working with at the time. She was like, here, you know, I have some double-sided tape. We can try, blah, blah, blah. I was like, okay, no problem. Sure enough, the father of the bride, or father of the groom, almost fell because he tripped on the aisle runner, and somebody ripped it. And then one of the guests, I have this big rule, and this is a pet peeve of mine about wedding guests. I let no one walk down the aisle before the bride. And some guests are just not cognizant enough to know, go down the pews the other way. Don't go down the aisle and then go to your seat. But no, they all were walking up and down the aisle. So there's footprints on the aisle runner before the bride could even get there. And then the mom's like, well, why didn't you put rose petals down there for the aesthetics? And I'm just like, ma'am, we are already trying to keep people from busting their ass on this damn aisle runner, which someone almost did. So me and my team, we're holding down the aisle runner, and it's just like, now we're eyesores in the picture, because now we're in the picture now. But it's just like, I care more about you guys' safety more than I care about the aesthetics of this aisle runner that I told you guys not to get.
So you hear that, everyone? Avoid paper aisle runners. For those of you who make and manufacture aisle runners, cut it out.
Please.
Do better.
Do way better.
They should be sticky on one side.
Exactly. Please.
Have you made it like in your contract that no paper aisle runners?
I'm about to have certain clause like, nope, don't want this, don't like that, not doing this. Yep. Highly don't recommend it. Mm-hmm.
Oh, I feel like sometimes you just want to shake people and be like, don't do this.
Right.
And it's a lot of times they don't know.
They don't.
They don't know, and they're doing the best they can, and they don't know. But that's why you get a professional and you take the advice of a professional, because we've actually been to a wedding or two.
Yeah.
It's not our first rodeo, and if we tell you, hey, we've done this and 10 times it hasn't worked, probably not going to work on the 11th time.
Hello. So now. Hello.
You don't need to reinvent the wheel.
Exactly.
So let's finish up. I do want to ask, because as much of as we've kind of joked around and talked about some of the negative stuff, what made you want to do this for your living?
So I plan almost every aspect of my life. Like, I plan what I'm going to do that day, what I'm going to wear that day, what I'm going to eat that day. And so that was always just something I was always doing subconsciously in the back of my mind. And then as a child, I was planning things and not knowing that I was event planning. Like, I would just like write out like, oh, this is what I'm going to do for my birthday and XYZ. And I had planned out my entire birthday. But I was born during hurricane season. So every time my birthday came around when I was younger, there was a hurricane coming. So, and like a hurricane actually came on my birthday, sabotaged the whole thing. So I was like, okay. So my younger sister, her birthday's always Memorial Day weekend. So I was like, this is great. I'm going to plan her birthday party. And so I planned the entire thing. I was like, they're going to have escorts. It's going to be almost like a cotillion, and it's going to be great. And then she wakes up, she's like, I don't want a party. I was like, are you kidding me? I did all of this, and I literally went. I remember I went to like Barnes and Noble and bought one of those big wedding planning binders and stuff like that. But I just like crossed out everywhere I said wedding and put event. And I was like, who am I? Like, what is this? I kept it, and I just kept it as a keepsake. And then I got in college, and then I found myself, I was always a person volunteering to plan the events, and I was just like, I actually thoroughly enjoyed learning the back end aspect of events and like how things come together, and like things just don't just happen at events. Like there's a process, there's a step, and I got more intrigued in it. And then I had one of my sorority sisters, she was just like, yeah, I'm getting married. I heard you're planning stuff. Like, you want to plan my wedding? I was like, me? Absolutely. And then I planned it, and learned a lot about things not to do, present day. And then she paid me for it. I was like, whoa, whoa, whoa. I was just doing it as a favor. She's like, if you're good at something, don't do it for free. My mom says that all the time too. So from there, I was just like, okay, I'm doing something I enjoy and I'm actually getting paid for it. So I'm like, from there, I started to take the education part of it seriously and go to conferences and, get more accustomed to learning the lingo and, really engulfing myself in the industry. And then I never looked back since. I came to the crossroad because I was trying to do it and work in corporate America at the same time, and I realized it was what I wanted to do because I was late to a wedding rehearsal because I was coming from work, and they read me for filth. They was like, "You're late and you're this, you're unprofessional," and I was just like, I want to be here more than I want to be there. And after I had made a decision, I was like, I'm going to do this full time. Like, my heart was more there than it was here, even though that was my source of income, my consistent source of income. But my heart was here. Like, I was very, very passionate about, doing that. Because I got tired of going to events done wrong. So I can't go to events sometimes because I'm, like, nitpicking about everything.
I feel,
this is wrong. This is wrong. What's going on here? Where is this person? And, like, even when I get invited to weddings sometimes, I'm like, man, I got to take a shot or something before I come here. Because if not, if my sober self is going to be like, no, they don't have a timeline. I bet they don't have a timeline. So,
well, God is not just us.
Right. Yep. So that, because it was so stuck on me like that, I was like, okay, this is probably what I need to be doing, like, long term.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, let's tell everybody how they can find you, how they can get a hold of you, and we'll let people go back to their lives.
Yeah. So you can get in contact with me on all social media platforms. CXT Event Co. That's my Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, Google Plus, all that stuff. And that's also my website, cxteventco.com. Also, you can also send me an email at hello@cxteventco.com. I'm on the other end of all of those things. So no matter which way you communicate, it's gonna be me. Please don't crucify me, small business woes. I am the face, the business, the accountant, the social media manager. I'm all that stuff. So if I don't get to you right away, trust me, I'm gonna get to it. But those things, especially now during COVID. Right now, I'm doing a lot of virtual consultations. So if you're hip to Zoom, that's how we'll meet. I'm really big on face-to-face interactions. So it hurts me tremendously that I can't meet potential clients anymore. But where there's a will, there's a way. So we have Zoom. So if there are any consultations that need to be had, we'll be doing them through Zoom. And other than that, I'm not out and about, obviously. I would love to be, but that's the best way to get in contact with me is my social media channels, but email is preferred.
Alrighty, well, thank you so much for being our first person.
Thanks for having me. I love you guys.
You're one of the first vendors that we met when we were here, so it's appropriate that you're the first.
Full circle. Yay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So no, we really we enjoyed it, learned a lot, and hopefully people watching got to see and learn some stuff. So
Thank you.
fantastic.
Yes.
Awesome. All right, well, bye everybody.
Bye.